Hello, and welcome to Health Fitness Redefined. I'm your host, Anthony Amen, and welcome to another fabulous week. Today, guys, we're going to be talking to everybody who feels like they're old, but they're not. Above 40 is not old. I can tell you that for a fact. But anyway, we're going to figure out how to feel better, live longer with Coach Allan Misner. Allan, it's a pleasure to have you on today.
I'm happy to be here, Anthony. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to start and preface that 40 is not old. So I think I'm getting really close to that number. So we're going to say 40 is the new 20.
Okay, then 50 is the new 30. Thank you.
Before we get into everything we're going to talk about today, we just want to learn a little bit more about you and how you became a coach and why you started teaching people above the age of 40. So take it away.
Yeah. So I was in my late 30s and I was hugely successful with my career. I had made it to C-suite. I was a executive vice president of a Fortune 500 company. I was making the money. I had the office. I had the stuff. I forced myself to take a vacation because I hadn't taken one in over 3 years. And I saw a sand volleyball court. And I was so excited. Like, this is great, right? I'm going to get to play some sand volleyball. I haven't played in 15 years. So I get out on the volleyball court and it's 6-on-6. There's a lot of people playing. So it should be easy. I barely made it through the first game. I was so tired. I actually felt like, my heart racing and my breathing. I was like, I might be having a heart attack. And I subbed out. I would have never have done that before. And I sat down and I was thinking, I might have to go to the emergency room. I might be dying right here. And I didn't, obviously, die that day, or this would be a whole different show, zombies. But the point being is I sat there that next day and I'm like, man, what happened? What happened? I used to play volleyball all day long. I'd play twos. I'd play, at a high level. And I'd always be going. And I'm like, I literally just walked out there and just almost died. And I'm like, that's not who I'm supposed to be. So I made this decision, that I was going to fix myself. Now, I was in an all-inclusive resort. It was only day 2. So yes, I continued to drink my ass off for the rest of the week. I'll fix this when I get home. And so for 8 years, I tried. I would do a diet. I would do some exercise, and I'd either stop doing it or I'd hurt myself or this and that. And so I went through the first half of 8 years, basically just this struggle. And I'm like, why is it so hard? It can't just be because I'm over 40. Because in my head, I still feel like I'm 20. It's just how we guys are. I'm not growing up. I'm Peter Pan. But here I am. I'm like, what's going on? And then it hit me one morning. A couple things had happened. My daughter had messaged me. She was now in her she just turned 20. She had become a level 1 CrossFit coach. And she was doing the CrossFit and the mud runs and all this kind of stuff. And she called me up and she said, Daddy, I want you to come watch me in this CrossFit competition. And I'm thinking to myself, what? I was never supposed to be a spectator in my daughter's life. I was supposed to be a participant. I don't want to be a spectator in my daughter's life. I want to be a participant. And so that's when I got the wild idea that I was going to train my body. I was going to repair myself, and I was going to do a Tough Mudder with my daughter. And so I messaged her and I said, hey, what do you think about doing a Tough Mudder in November? This is only 8 months later. I was like, I started trying to do some things. I was, so I was moving, but I wasn't going far. And I said, hey, let's do a Tough Mudder in November. She was like, okay. So Tough Mudder is like a 12 to 13 mile run in the mud, in the swamp, all this stuff, and all these obstacles. So it's extremely difficult. And at the time, it was the only civilian run obstacle course like that. And actually a Marine had died doing it. So it's like, this was not like a simple little 5K thing I was doing. This was a big deal. So I started training. But what I realized was what was different. What was different between this and everything else I'd ever done was I had not committed to this. I had done some really, really hard things in my life, especially around my career. And why couldn't I do this? Well, because I didn't put myself 100% committed to it. You've got that poster behind you about when you want this more than you want to breathe, it's going to happen. And I wanted this more than I wanted to breathe, basically. So I committed. I fully committed, all in. So there was no turning back. But I also understood that I didn't know what I was doing. And so I started working on certifications because I was traveling 90% of the time. And people hear that, they're like, oh, he's traveling 80%. 90% of the time means I was only home 3 days a month.
Wow.
Okay. Really hard to hire a personal trainer when you're only going to be there 3 times a month. Really hard to deal with a nutritionist at the time because they didn't do telephone calls. You had to be in their office. And those, most of the time when I was home, it was over a weekend. So this was just, those were obstacles. I could have said, oh, I can't do this. Oh, it's not going to work, but I was committed. So I went and got my certified personal trainer, corrective exercise, a functional aging specialist, fitness nutrition. I got the certifications I needed to fix me. And that's what I did. I lost 66 pounds of fat. I gained 11 pounds of muscle. If you go to my website, 40plusfitness.com, start looking around, you'll find the before and after pictures of me. And it's like looking at a different guy. You can just look at my face. You don't even look at the bloated body I had before and the body I had after. You just look at my face and notice that something fundamental changed in me. And I was able to complete that Tough Mudder. Not only complete it, I kept up with my daughter. I didn't slow her down. And we crossed that finish line together. Now, there's 3 times in my life that I had special moments like this with my daughter. The first one was when she was born. And she was laying on the table, and I reached down, and she wrapped her fingers around my pinky. Okay, the second time was 30 years later when I'm walking her down the aisle, and we're arm in arm. And then the third one is holding her hand, crossing the finish line at this Tough Mudder. I was participating in my daughter's life. In each of those instances, I was not a spectator. And that's the difference, the commitment difference that got me doing what I was doing, and then realizing that this should be available to everybody. There was not a podcast for people over 40 in the fitness and health field. I started one. There was not a trainer doing online training for people over 40. There actually weren't many online trainers at all, unless you were into bodybuilding or powerlifting or something. But there weren't many online personal trainers either. So I started doing that because I was like, what did I need? When I was traveling, if I had access to an online personal trainer spot, I'm on it. They didn't exist. So I started things that weren't there because I knew people needed this. And they absolutely do. And so that's what I do. I'm an online personal trainer now. When I got laid off from that corporate job, that while I loved the money, I hated the people and the work. And so I just said, okay, I'm done. I'm not going back. And that's led me to make a lot of other decisions along the way that have also been hugely beneficial for me. And that's the way I look at it now. If it's not something that's going to bring more joy to my life, probably not going to do it.
I love that. And I think this all starts from a lot of trainers, and I've said this before, but people usually have that oh shit moment in their life. And they get into the health and fitness realm, and they're the ones that are really the most impactful because they said, wow, my life was in shambles, and then I found this into the health and fitness thing and was able to overcome me feeling like shit. And now I want to show the people how not to feel like shit.
Yeah. Well, and it was, I think we all do this, especially guys. It was like, okay, it's the job, who are you? And then, at the time I would have said, I'm an accountant, I'm a vice president, this and that. Now someone asks me who I am, and I'm like, I'm chill, I'm fun, I'm enjoying my life, and I help people. I help a lot of people. And so it's a whole different math when you're able to sit down and say, I like what I do, and I like who I am, and I like the life I'm living. And if you can't say that about those 3 things, you got some work to do.
Yeah, it's me talking about owning gyms. Why do you own gyms? Gym owners make literally no money. Yeah, I could have gone to real estate, but that wasn't fun. That wasn't who I am. That didn't get the capability to help people. That doesn't give me the capability to go into work. I don't even call it work. I call it fun. I get to go have
Yeah.
fun every day and watch people do better.
There you go. Yeah.
That's the little extra enjoyment in your life you get out of finding your passion and truly helping others. And I want to go back to you playing volleyball on the beach on vacation, because a lot of people I've personally seen have been in those situations, but they don't make the decision to change. They just say, oh, this is the new me now, and I'm going to just sit out and never play volleyball again. So can you talk to those people?
Yeah. Yeah. So volleyball, in this sense, it was an actual thing. So it's not like I made the volleyball up. That's a true story. But I want you to think of it as a metaphor, because it could be anything. It could be your children are on the floor playing and you don't feel confident that you can get down on the floor with them and get back up. You are a spectator in your child's life. It could be you take your kids to the zoo, or later take your grandkids to the zoo, and you don't have the stamina to keep up with them. So you're the grandpa or the grandma sitting on the bench near the entrance while they're doing the zoo. And then you're going to see them on the way out. You're going to see all the excitement on them. You're going to see the sticky faces from the cotton candy. And you're not going to have experienced any of that because you didn't have the stamina to keep up with them. So we could talk about, well, that's what it is. But is that really what you want? And I'll tell you another story. It goes on. And then you're starting young. This is the time to fix it, because when it gets to this point, it's probably not fixable. My grandfather was 80 years old. We're sitting in a golf cart, and usually around this time, all the guys are going to go out and golf. I'm not a golfer, but they all lived on golf courses, and they loved to golf. He'd been golfing his whole life, and he didn't go out with them. I'm like, okay, Grandpa, what's going on? You didn't go golfing with the guys. He's like, well, I can't do it anymore. I don't have the balance. Can't swing the club. I'm like, okay, well, do you want to go to the range and just hit some balls? He's like, no, I can't even swing the club. So something this man loved, he lost at the age of 80. And somebody was like, oh, so what? He's 80, right? He's done. He lived to 95. So the last 15 years of his life, he couldn't do the thing he loved. All of his friends were golfers. His children were golfers. He wasn't able to do it. Now, flash forward to when he's 90. He's starting to have trouble taking care of himself, like just basic stuff. So it got to a point where he wouldn't even see me. He wouldn't let me come over and visit. So I'd come into town. I'd want to visit him. He didn't want me to come over. And what I found out was the reason he didn't want me to come over was that he couldn't make it to the bathroom from his couch. So he would accident on himself. He couldn't. So for the last 5 years of his life, I didn't even get to see him. So he wasn't even a spectator in my life anymore. Now, I want to be able to wipe my own butt when I'm 105. Okay. And some people will giggle with that, but this is a pretty deep thing. One, I want to live to 105, which means I got to do the things necessary to take care of myself and keep me alive. And then two, I'm going to have the capacity to stand up from the couch after watching Jeopardy, because that's 48 years from now, but they'll still have Jeopardy will still be on 48 years from now. Mark my words. Yeah, there'll be a Jeopardy. It probably won't be the same guy, but there'll be a guy or a girl, and they'll be doing Jeopardy, and I'll be sitting there watching it. I'll be able to get up from the couch, meaning I got the leg strength to do that squat, rise. I'm going to be able to have the speed and dexterity to move through my house, my apartment, to make it to the bathroom, drop the pants, be able to squat down, have the dexterity, mobility, strength, balance to be able to do the paperwork, stand back up, pull up my pants, and flush the toilet and go back to Jeopardy. Those are all fitness. Those are all fitness modalities that you have today. You're like, oh, I got it today. I can wipe my own butt. I'm good. But if you're not doing the training to maintain that strength, to maintain that balance, to just maintain that stamina and speed, then what's going to happen? Well, you're going to lose it. And
And I think
so,
people lose it first with stairs. I mean, you see it all the time where they move from colonials, Victorians down to ranches, or they just stop using their basement. So they just stop using the second floor. They move the bedroom downstairs to sleeping on the couch more because they can't make it up the stairs and they're
yeah,
afraid to do that.
yes, exactly. It's strength, it's balance, it's fitness. I call it fitness, fit for task. And so it's not that you have to be like a CrossFit athlete and feel like you've got to look and do that part. If you're young and you want to, by all means, do that stuff. But when you get older, it's about being able to carry your child around. It's about being able to keep up with them at the zoo. Then at some point, it's about opening your own damn pickle jar. Because if you're sitting there and can't open a pickle jar, guess what you don't get?
Pickles.
You don't get pickles. And then beyond that, now someone else comes in. It's like, hey, son, would you open that pickle jar for me? Well, now you're no longer independent. You're either dependent on your son or you're seeing that cool, because Facebook's going to know as soon as you sit there struggling with that jar, suddenly you're going to start seeing all these ads for assistant jar opener things, the tools and the gadgets. They're going to be all over your Facebook or all over your Instagram because they're listening. It's like, that guy's having trouble with a jar. Let's show him some ads for how to open a jar. You don't even have to say anything. God damn pickles. And poof, here you are with all those ads. Okay. But you're not independent anymore. And that's the start. That's where you don't have the grip strength. Then there are other capabilities you're not going to have. And there are actually studies out there that have correlated grip strength with all-cause mortality. If you have weak grip strength, you're early grave relative to someone who has stronger grip strength. And how do you get grip strength? Resistance training, holding bars, holding dumbbells, holding yourself, the stuff we do in gyms.
Yeah, and I'm going to put down a myth right now, and then you're going to go over some actionable steps for people that are looking to kind of get started with things they can do at home. And myth, which has been proven time and time again, and it only takes years for people to agree with me, but we're here. So Strength training is better than cardio, period. Especially as you age, because it gives you more functionality. It helps with bone density. It helps with osteoarthritis. It helps with, because your muscles will deteriorate over time. So it helps build back strength. It helps keep your metabolism higher. Yes, you need cardio. That doesn't mean I'm never going to do cardio ever again in my life. But if you are limited on time and you have one option, and if you're this person, fine, go do some kind of strength training exercise. Lift up a dumbbell, even if it's 2 pounds. Something.
Yes, resistance training is non-negotiable.
It's non-negotiable.
Yeah. You have to do it. It's something you have to do. Unless you just want to just die slow, even faster. I mean, because you're just going to go. It's just, you're going to lose this battle if you're not doing resistance training. That's a given. Most of us do need to do some cardio, but I prefer to call it stamina work because it really fits more with what do you need? Well, I need to be able to keep up with that grandson because he's going to run from the lion to the monkeys. And I don't want to be just calling out to him. He's not listening. It's monkeys. He's not listening. I got to keep up with him if I'm responsible for him. And I want to be a participant in his life and not a spectator. I got to keep up with him. So that's some stamina work. So there is some stamina work that needs to be done. But yes, I totally agree with you. The resistance, if you like, I only have an hour this week to do anything, go lift some weights.
And just do it back and forth with the weights. Go from one to the other, and then you get your cardio in anyway. It'll help keep the heart rate up.
Yeah. When you get older, I will say this. When you're older, I'm not a fan of dynamic movement and weight. That's kind of, for us, it can be kind of a double-edged sword. It's easier to hurt yourself when you're trying to move weight dynamically and potentially quickly to get your heart rate up. I
meant more supersetting, shoulder press, chest press, pull, squat. And
Exactly.
then I want to go
Exactly.
back to your zoo example. Let's say you're watching the lions and your kid's really tiny and needs to be picked up. So you need to be able to squat, grab
Yes.
your kid, deadlift that kid up, and then shoulder press them up to put them on top of the bar so they can see the lions. And then
Yeah.
you have to be able to.
Why are you feeding your kids to the lions, dude?
You join them in. You're just done. You just go with the lions.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
you bring them down, and then they're running to the monkeys. So then you need to be able to follow your kid and run over to the monkeys, get
Yeah.
back to them, reach out, grab them because they're about to steal another kid's ice cream because my kids are idiots. And then you grab them away from those kids. So you're pulling them into you, and then you're saying, no, here are the monkeys, and you're shoulder pressing them back up to the monkeys.
Yeah. And that's the whole point. That's fit for task. It's like you literally just named something that would be a part of being a good father, taking your kid to the zoo, enjoying that quality time with them. They're oohing and awing. They're really having a good time. And they're going to remember this as being you. Whereas if the family's going and you're not able to keep up with them and you're sitting on a bench and they're having these things, so just sit down for a little while. We'll get to the monkeys before the zoo closes. I promise. It's a whole different experience. And so it's just being fit for task and capable of doing the things that matter, which are being you and being the you deserve to be.
Yeah, I totally agree. So what are some actionable steps that somebody who is in that similar situation is just looking to get started and doesn't want to yo-yo for 8 years?
Okay.
How can they get started?
Okay. The core of it is this: is most of us do motivation wrong. And what I mean by that is we sit and wait. I'm waiting for motivation. I'll be motivated on Monday. I'll be motivated January 1st. My birthday's coming up. I'm going to be motivated the day after my birthday. I'm going to get drunk on my birthday, but I'm going to be motivated the next day for sure. Right.
Which if you've ever been drunk, you're never motivated the next day.
Okay. True story. But the whole point is that you go at it like this. I'm going to enjoy my party, my birthday party, and then boom, I'm on it the next day. Okay. That's what I'm going to do. Sure. If you wait for motivation, it will never show. Or if it does show, it won't be consistent. It won't be long-term. You get motivation by doing. Now, I don't have time to go into the whole model that I have for this, but I want you to think about there's extrinsic motivators and there's intrinsic motivators. So there's external motivators and there's internal motivators. The extrinsic are the people that you can have around you that are going to help you, that are going to keep you focused. That's a coach. That's a personal trainer. That's the class you join, the people in the class that you don't want to let down. You just show up. You're team 5 a.m. Let's go do this thing. You're the spin class. This time. You have these social things around you, the coach and the social things that keep you going. That's accountability, which is a motivator. The other one is the intrinsic or internal. And this is where you start self-managing, where you're saying, look, I do want to be the best dad I can be. And I do need to build stamina and I do need to build strength. So I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow. I'm going to set my alarm for half an hour earlier and I'm going to go get this thing done. So setting your alarm, that's a management function in your head, self-management. I set my alarm. Second, I didn't hit snooze. 3, I packed my gym bag the night before. So it's sitting by the door ready to go. I did those things to make sure I would be successful. That's self-management. It's intrinsic motivation. It's harder than having a coach because, the coach is there at 5 a.m. You're going to be there. But here you're doing a lot of this yourself. And then the final bit, which is the strongest, is when you identify as that person. So this is your values, these are your habits. So you can see this the most common. It's in runners. So someone starts out and they just say, okay, I'm going to do this little run walk thing, maybe do a couch to 5K. They do their first 5K. They join a run club. They've got all this stuff going. Now they're running. And that instant they start to say, I'm a runner. They identify as a runner. There's no question that they're going to go for a run in the morning. That's what? Who doesn't get up and go for a run before work? I'm a runner. That's what I do. That identifying is basically your internal. And so now we're talking self-efficacy. So you have accountability, that's the extrinsic. You have the intrinsic, which is self-efficacy. And when you can have both of those working for you, there's not a moment of your life that you don't have motivation.
Yeah. I talked in detail about this in my first podcast of the year of 2024. So go listen to that. I'm still waiting to be canceled on YouTube for some of the things I said on there because I was very in your face about a lot of it. If that's the no filter, no bullshit, stop doing motivation wrong and do these things. And I'll point out a couple of key points that you mentioned that reiterate some points I mentioned. So one of the extrinsic motivation factors where you were talking about telling others and getting others involved. I'm a firm believer. If you want to do something, go tell 5 people, 2 of them close, 3 of them they're not really close to, what your plans are and make them keep you accountable. So if you don't want to pay for a trainer, you don't want to pay for a coach, and you just want that motivation, say, hey, Fred, text me every Monday to make sure that I worked out 3 days last week and did XYZ on my diet. Don't miss a text. Fred's going to text you. You're going to feel like shit if you can't ask your Fred properly because that's somebody that is now holding you accountable to what you do.
Yeah.
So that's a huge one. Another big one for people you know, your spouse, your significant other, somebody you live with, because if you get them on board, they're not going to sabotage you. And I don't mean sabotage you in a way of they're going to purposely do it. Well, they might, but who knows?
Yeah.
More likely than not, it's not intentional. But unintentionally, they're going to go out and buy sweets. They're going to go buy things that are harder to resist when they're in your face, where you're motivated, but now you're seeing it because it's something another bought it. So if you can get them on board, huge win. And then the intrinsic part, go ahead, sorry.
Well, the thing is that those individuals are probably a big part of why you're doing this in the first place. So if I sat and I told you, like, look, this is important to me. I'm doing this so I can be here for you and the kids. I need to be strong. I need to be capable. I need to be healthy. They don't need to be visiting me in the hospital because I just had a heart attack at 53. So this is important and I need your assistance. I need your help. They're going to help you. And like 100, who's going to not? I mean, if they're not helping you, then you got something to work on with the relationship. But beyond that, just realize that they are your why. You know, they're part of that whole thing. When I first started this, I wasn't married, but I can tell you right now, if I sat down and said, why do I do what I do? My wife is a big part of that why. So is my daughter. So now are my other 3 kids from her side. And so that's my family now. And that's why I want to be strong and fit and I want to be independent. I don't want them to have to be the ones wiping my butt. I'm sorry, but that's not how I want to live my life.
Tell your wife that. Wife, keep me accountable so you don't have to wipe my ass. See, that's her calling.
Maybe. It actually is. It actually is. You're right.
Look at that. She knew. She's like, Allan, I don't want to wipe your butt. Keep your shit together. No, but I love that. And then I want you to just add one little point of extrinsic, and then I'll move back to the intrinsic part. But the kid excuse is something I hear all the time, which I've ripped into a few times, and I'll say it again because I don't care. Stop using your freaking kids as excuses about why you need to have sweets in the house and have all the sugar and all the soda and all the candy and all the bad food and because you're giving it to your kids. One, why the hell are you only feeding your kids that? You're just teaching them bad habits. I understand treats. I understand your kid wants McDonald's because their friends are going to once a month. Who gives a shit? Go have fun. Go enjoy it. But don't have it constantly around because you're going to sabotage yourself. You're going to give your kids shit nutrition. So when they're your age, they're not going to know how to eat healthy because they were never taught and they never learned through habits. And it's just a win-win for everybody if you just start getting, let's all have a family healthy plan together. Let's all go have salads. What's your favorite ingredient in a salad? And everyone tests the favorite ingredients. You put it in a salad, you make it, throw some grilled chicken on it, and give it out. I don't have kids, so full disclosure. So what do you think as far as that?
I'll tell you, no, that's a very important concept because it really goes to mindset where you feel like you're the caregiver. You feel like you have to do these things for your kids. You start putting everybody else's needs ahead of your own. You're not taking care of the caregiver. You think you're taking care of them. And unfortunately, that's a recipe for disaster. Now you can turn that into a superpower. And the way you do that is you actually solicit their help. Like you said, it was like, okay, we're going to do this. And I'll tell you a story about a client that was just like this. She's like, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to do this. I got these kids. I got to feed them. By the time I feed them, I've been nibbling off of their stuff while I was preparing it. Then I fix it. They don't eat all of it. I don't want to waste the food. I ate their food. I had my dinner, their dinner, plus all the snacking before. Oh, and the 2 glasses of wine that I had while I was cooking dinner. Uh, you know, that's their life. It's like, I'm taking care of others, and I'm not, and they know they're not taking care of themselves. So the way you turn around, she actually told her kids, it's like, look, we need to be more prepared, more planned. You're starting activities in school, like you're doing the soccer and the basketball and the stuff. And so she's like, we're doing all this stuff. So we need to be prepared. So we have dinner ready, and we don't have to be worrying about what we're going to do for dinner after practice or after this and on Saturdays between games. So she started doing meal prep. And on Sunday, she enlisted them and said, okay, so what do you want for lunches next week? What do you want for dinners next week? And we'll start planning. And her daughter came forward and says, Mom, those breakfast bowls we used to make were actually really healthy, weren't they? And she said, yeah, they were. So why don't we just make a bunch of those? And then we can warm those up ourselves because we know how to do that. And then you have time to go work out, and you don't have to worry about making us breakfast. And then her husband chipped in and said, look, I can make sure they're dressed for school. So yes, you can go on down and get your workout done each morning while I'm checking out the kids are dressed okay. They're not going to get sent home. And they can have a good breakfast because it's already been made. They just pull it out and they warm it up. And so this whole family came together behind her needs, and that became her superpower. She had a whole team in her family right there. They were her why. She engaged them in this, and they turned into caretakers when she needed care and allowed her the time to take care of herself.
I love that. That's a great story.
If you just slow down, yeah.
it really just shows, like, if you get other people involved, like back to the example of telling people, like maybe if you reach out to those 5 people and one of them's like, shit, Allan, I'm going to do this with you. Let's text each other. Like you might motivate somebody else. And I love the family unit aspect of it the most, but that's just a different example of it. And then going into like the intrinsic part of it, it's super important to be prepped and ready and plan accordingly. I am a firm believer in, I hate mornings, and I'm the first to ever say this, but working out before you start your day is the best way to make sure you get it in, because what ends up happening 9 times out of 10 is I go to work and I say, I'm going to work out after work. I had a bad day. I'm super stressed. Now I don't want to go. My boss asked me to stay late. My wife said the kids need to be picked up from school early. One of them's sick. The dinner is, we're having issues. The house, the steak burned down, whatever. I don't know. I'm making it false bullshit. But my point is, things happen because everyone's now awake and everyone is now piling things on your plate as we get into later in the day. Whereas opposed to if you switch the gym to the morning, it's now priority number 1. Nobody has time to put things on your plate, and you can just get it out of the way, and then it doesn't matter what the day brings after that.
Yeah. So when I was doing the whole Tough Mudder training, I still had this job thing going on. They expected me to be there if they're going to pay my salary. And so what I did was I put my lunch hour, I blocked out on my calendar each day of the week at 2:00 in the afternoon. So I would get up in the morning. I'd do some stamina work, some cardio, nothing intense, but I do maybe 45 minutes, an hour of cardio in the morning. And then in the afternoon from 2 to 3, that was my weightlifting. That was my resistance training. And it was blocked out on my calendar, so no one could make a meeting. And maybe twice, I think, in the whole time that I was doing this, my boss would call my office. It was bizarre, like right at 2:00. I had just changed into my gym clothes. One of those times. One time he caught me right before, and I literally had my gym bag in my hand. I went up to his office, and I'm holding my gym bag, and he's like, what's going on? I'm like, well, I do my lunch hour from 2 to 3 because there's no one in the gym. And I don't have any meetings this time of day. I don't know. People don't usually schedule meetings at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I don't know why, but it works out great. But he would call me everyone. And then one time he called me, I was actually already dressed for gym. So I'm walking through the C-suite in shorts, a t-shirt, and tennis shoes. And I walk into his office. He's like, what's this? I'm like, I told you, I go to the gym from 2 to 3. That's my lunch hour. He's like, oh. And he tells me what he needs. I'm like, do you need this before 4 o'clock? He's like, no. I'm like, okay, I'll have it to you by 4. Walked over to the gym, did my workout. Sometimes I'd go to my workout. Yes, I'd be stressed. I'd be angry. I would just throw around more weight. I was like, okay, screw you, John, screw you. Okay, I put more weight on the bar. I'm going, and and that's how I'd burn off some stress. It's like, I'm going to get a PR on squat today, so I can leave today knowing I did something valuable. It was just that was the mindset. Because again, remember, I started with the why, my daughter, and wanting to be a participant and not a spectator. And then there was the commitment of, I'm doing this thing. This is going to be hard, but I'm going to do this hard thing. And then it was the 2-a-days where I'm literally getting up in the morning early enough to do some long cardio, out 45 minutes to an hour. And then in the afternoon, I have that blocked dedicated time. This is my time. This is not anybody else's time. The only person I would answer the phone for, the only person I'd respond to was my boss or my boss's boss or the board of directors, one of those guys. But it was a handful of people that I would stop what I was doing. If it was anyone else, screw it. I'll talk to you when I get back from the gym. Leave a message, and that's how you have to approach this. You have to be number one. I know that sounds weird. A lot of people think, well, no, that's kind of selfish. I'm like, well, it's not selfish when you're doing it for the right reasons. And that was my daughter.
To help other people, like help your daughter.
Yeah.
Help your wife not wipe your ass. Like, there's you
right.
doing this for
Exactly.
For them.
For them. Right.
Is there anything else you want to add for people listening to this podcast as actionable tips before we wrap this up?
Okay. Well, I love the name of this podcast, Redefine Fitness. And I think that's the message would be, fitness is what you need your fitness to be. It's not what anyone else tells you. It's not about your body fat percentage. It's not about how much you can bench press. It's not about how many toes to bar you can do nonstop. It's none of that stuff. And while CrossFit will say they're the fittest man or woman on earth, you just want to be the fittest you need to be the best you can be on this earth. So it's really going to be about, okay, right now I'm 58 years old. What do I need to be able to do? And I have to do some things that a lot of other people wouldn't have to do, like carrying water bottles around the bed and breakfast, climbing ladders, climbing down, doing different things, carrying stuff. My wife wants this in there, that in there. I can do that without hurting myself. Later on, it's going to be the simple stuff of being able to open jars. I'm still the guy around the house that opens jars. That's my job. I'm a bellhop when people arrive. I've got to carry their luggage upstairs, put it in the rooms, get them checked in. That's my lifestyle today. And I plan on doing that for a while. Later on, my lifestyle might be a little different as I age, but I'm not going to age out like most people. I'm going to live the life that I'm supposed to live. I'm going to be fit for task for who I need to be. And that's the way you should look at it too.
I love that, Allan. Thank you. And then how can people find you, get a hold of you, learn more, and work with you?
Okay. Well, you can go to 40 Plus Fitness. That's 40plus fitness.com/Anthony. And that's going to take you to, not Tony, Anthony. So a lot more letters, but Anthony. They want your URL to be as short as possible, but Anthony, 40plusfitness.com/Anthony. That'll take you to my website. There'll be links to various things like my training, my book, my podcast, and all that. And then just a shout out to Anthony here for having me on the podcast. There's going to be a dedicated page for him from my website. So you can go there. Everything will be there. It'll be pretty simple. And that's where anyone I'm talking to about this, that's where I'm going to send them. So you can go to 40plusfitness.com/Anthony and find everything that I'm about there.
Thank you, Allan. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you guys for listening to this week's episode of Health and Fitness Redefined. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button, leave a review, share this with a friend. We really appreciate it. And also, don't forget, fitness is medicine. Until next time.